All right, we're live and welcome to the first episode of Women Empower Active, a project to help women reach their fitness goals through sharing information and discussing the obstacles which often snag all of us in our pursuit of active, healthy lifestyles. I'm Amy Moritz and I'll be your moderator for this video chat. Please follow along on Twitter, follow at URSportswear. And also, please tweet your questions using the hashtag strongwomen. And you can ask any questions for our guests or offer any words of wisdom that you'd like to share about your journey in pursuing your fitness goals. So today, our guest is Kara Graci, a former collegiate runner, who will talk to us about the transition from being a collegiate runner to transitioning to running an everyday civilian life. So welcome, Kara. And hi. If you could start by telling us a bit about your running background and when you started running, how did you decide that that was something you wanted to pursue competitively?
Sure. Gosh, I'm really nervous. You think being a teacher, I could just stand up in front of people and talk. Let's see. I started running when I was really young. I don't even really remember. I know I did my first 5K in 1992. I don't know how old that would make me, 8, 9. And I just always saw my dad running and wanted to be just like him. So I just kind of fell into it that way. So naturally, I joined middle school cross country and track and worked my way up through high school. And it was something I really enjoyed. So then I decided I wanted to go on and do it in college. I started getting recruited by college teams. I use that term loosely because I wasn't very fast. Um, and then I started kind of feeling things out and decided I wanted to go to Northern Michigan University. And I actually started there on a scholarship, kind of on a fluke. I was supposed to get a little bit of money, and they sent me the wrong scholarship, and I signed it. And I actually didn't know it, and so I got a little bit more. And didn't realize it, and I think that was a good motivator for me. It kind of was a big kick in the pants to earn the money, and I didn't find out until years later that I didn't sign the right scholarship, so I didn't know. But just the fact that I was getting money to go to college, I thought that was really cool, and so I started running. My coach was Sten Feldheim, and also my assistant coach was Jenny Ryan, and they also coached the cross country ski team. And that was huge for me because they had world-class athletes on their team, and just to see the amount of time and training that they put into things uh, was a lot different than what I was doing, and I just really wanted to try to keep up with them in practice because we ran with the women's ski team at meets. So just when we were practicing together before meets and stuff, I thought I can do that. I want to be like them, and I didn't think I could ski, but I thought I can dedicate myself to this, and so. After my first year there, I went home over the summer and worked out quite a bit, and then after that I ended up not ever going back home, and I trained at Northern Michigan full time and ended up doing pretty well. I held the 5K indoor track record and the outdoor 10K record, and actually the 10K record was in its 10th year, and it just got broken this last year by a really awesome athlete who's friends with my sister. So anyways, that's kind of how I kind of fell into it. I didn't I thought I was a runner, but I didn't really want to train. And then being in the environment where people were training really hard, um, it just kind of motivated me a little bit more.
Yeah, and what was that experience like for you to be part of a team? I mean, you were part of a team in middle school and in high school. But what was that college team experience like for you?
Um, It was a little bit like high school in the sense that we had a lot of fun together and we really bonded. That was great being so far away from home. I was almost 7 hours away from home, and you automatically had these built-in friends that you saw on campus and got to hang out with. Um, my cousin is actually going to school here where I live now, same distance away from home, and she said the same thing. You have that bond with your team. our team had just been to nationals, NCAA's, as a team for the first time um, the year prior, and so the girls were very dedicated, and we really motivated each other. What probably was the most serious the team had been, and even to this day, I think that 4 to 6 year stretch, um, we were very serious. We did nothing but run and study and sleep and didn't go to any parties. And, those of us who were of age didn't go to bars or stay out late. We were in bed 10 o'clock and up in the morning. And so it was really excited to be part of something that was so big for the university, and it was exciting. I really enjoyed the team aspect of it, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I like that the most.
So, when you finished your college career, what did you do running wise? Did you keep running? And let's just start with that. Did you keep running after college, or were you done after you left?
Sure. I finished up my cross country eligibility before I finished up my track eligibility, because our track team at NMU didn't start until a couple of years after I started there. We had I think it was a 10-year gap where there was no track team. So I was part of the new track team and was able to run another year or two after I was done with my cross country eligibility. I was in a 4.5 year program. Long story, but it took me 5.5 years because I switched majors and whatnot. So I actually kept running after I was done with cross country, which was my true love. And I ran my first marathon that fall that I was out of cross country eligibility. And, I did rather well. I qualified for Boston just because I had been training so hard to begin with. I didn't have to put in a lot of extra work. Then when I was done, it's all kind of fuzzy. I really had to go back before this and think about it. I tried running a lot. I tried being competitive, but it was really hard for me to make the transition from studying and working out twice a day to having to go to work all day and then come home and work out. And that was really a challenge for me. So I ran off and on quite a bit and wanted to be dedicated to running, wanted to work hard at it, but I couldn't find the balance for a really long time.
I just wanted to remind people who are tuning in that keep your questions to Kara using the hashtag strongwomen. So we want to hear your questions and your words of wisdom also in this video chat. So Kara, as you're making that transition and from being in school to having a real world job and trying to fit in running, how did you find your motivation? You said you tried to keep running. Did you have to fall in love with running again find a certain point where you had to find your love for that again?
Yeah, I actually didn't keep my motivation at all. I really liked food. I really liked working. That was different for me. I would say that there's a dog fight in the background. I would say that sorry, it's kind of a tough subject for me too. I would say that work was a new passion of mine, and I had to find a way to decide what I liked the most and how to find a balance. But yeah, I didn't really run for a long time, and I said I was a runner, and I think a lot of people that I knew thought I was still running because I talked about it all the time, but I was embarrassed that it wasn't my life anymore. So I really had to fall out of love with running in order to fall back in love with it. And I finally realized things for me were going to be different. I know there's a lot of people out there that hold a full-time job and run competitively and are semi-pro, but for me, that just wasn't, I wanted to be like that, and I knew it wasn't in the cards for me. So I had to run without a watch, run without a time in mind, go and find places that I liked running. I moved quite a bit right after college, so find places that I was comfortable running in. There was a lot of different factors in it. And I think one big thing that I learned is to not have as many expectations going into a big event or a new endeavor, because you're a new person after you graduate and leave the college arena, especially if you take time off. If you keep running competitively, it's probably a lot different. But for me, it's like I finally got to the point maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I said, you know what? You have new PRs now. These are your adult PRs, and that has helped immensely. That, I think, was the turning point where, because I do still like racing and being competitive, that I can say, I think I'm going to go for my new best time, which is not, 18-minute 5K. It's not going to be like that anymore. And it could be again someday, but I just can't expect that.
So you really shifted your focus, not mentally, as to how you wanted to approach running and how you wanted to approach getting back into racing also.
Exactly. Yeah, I had to really just take a step back and say, why are you doing this anyway? Are you doing it to win? Because if you're doing it to win, to start with, you can't. You can get there eventually, but you can't just go into races and expect for it to be like it was when you were 18.
And how did you, so you made that shift mentally, and you talked about you had to run without a watch and without a time to fall back when you were falling back in love with running. How did things change for you physically and training? How did you work about finding a balance, or maybe still work at finding that balance between training and work?
Sure. I think it's something that I work on all the time. I've had the luxury of actually going back to school, which we all do. I did it once after I graduated. I started a master's program, and then decided that education was not for me, and so I'm going back again. Um, so that's been a challenge too, is because my lifestyle has completely changed now. I'm kind of a student again, kind of working. But yes, I had to run without a watch, and again had to ask myself why I was doing it. And one big thing that changed in my life was that my family experienced the death of my uncle. He was a police officer, and he was uh, killed in 2011, and I really had to take a step back and say, what are you doing to take care of yourself? What can you do to help yourself get through this? And that was really when I started the whole love affair of running again. Was I had to find something to do with my time and my mind, because other things that I might have chosen weren't so helpful.
Yeah, so is that one of the main things when you look at, I think we all have those days when, like, why am I getting up to run, no matter what level you're at, and you reach back to why you're doing it. Is that, I mean, is that one of the reasons why that motivates you, as to remembering why it is that you're running?
Yeah, and I think for me too, it's like I do it because I feel better. I mean, really, there's days when you don't want to do it and you're like, I feel like crap. Well, you're going to feel like even more crap if you don't go run. And that's, I mean, it helps you find a purpose. It helps me just feel better. It helps me start my day right. It's really, it's been hard. Like I said before, I really like the team aspect too. And that was part of falling in love with it again, was finding other things that I liked about it, because I don't live in a big area where there's a shop team that I can join, or even just a running group. There are some groups that have been popping up more recently, but back when I had just graduated and was moving around and stuff, there wasn't anything like that. And I was so dedicated to my work that I didn't really have the time or the energy to start and maintain a group like that, because I tried a couple times to get something going, but that just couldn't be a priority for me because of life circumstances. Which, by the way, not to just keep going on and on, but that's another thing, is I had to look and say, like, I can't do everything, and so what am I going to be happy with? What am I going to push myself with? And it's all about balance, really. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true.
But it is right. It is about. We're all looking. I think we're all constantly striving to find that find that balance in our lives. You know, when you were talking about your college days, the team aspect was seemed just so big for you and so motivating. So you touched on it when you moved and you didn't have that team to train with or to work with, to run with. You didn't have that group kind of driving you. How big of a change was that for you to have to make?
Yeah, that was really big. I mean, I don't know how else to say that, because that was, for me, it was a huge transition. And at one point, I think my husband said to me, like, you didn't like running, you like being on a team. And I said, well, maybe. And so it's finding other people. If you don't have a team nearby, that's one big thing that I found was using like the internet and social media were a huge support for me. And not a lot of people where I live use Twitter. Some people in bigger cities are like, really, what? And no, but I'm kind of in the minority, and that's because I found a support group per se in the people that I met through there. So finding other ways to get that camaraderie, to get that motivation, for me was life changing.
And speaking of Twitter, I just want to remind people who are watching to go ahead and tweet us any questions that you might have for us about, or for Kara, about making that transition from collegiate runner to civilian life, I think is how we're phrasing it, or any words of wisdom that you might have. Tweet us your questions using the hashtag strongwomen. So we want to encourage you to do that. Kara, I was reading one of your blog posts relatively recently, and you were talking about that pacing is one of your weaknesses. And what's challenging for you about pacing, and how have you had to work on that?
Some of it is just going from shorter race distances to longer race distances. I found that for me, leaving college running didn't mean I was any worse of a runner. It might have sounded earlier like I was talking down on myself. I'll never be that way again. But I wasn't naturally a 5K runner or a 10K runner, but I find I can get a pace and hold it. The problem is that in the longer race, your pace is not your 5K pace. I go out too fast, or I go out maybe like I would have when I used to have some better fitness. And so I've been learning to train at a particular pace and race at that pace, and then work on it in a progression. So I'm, eventually getting faster. Yeah, I can PR in a half marathon because I do pace work. I don't PR when I go out like a bat out of hell. So it really, it's just being patient. And I used to be super patient in my shorter races. So it's funny that I say I have a problem with pacing, because I've always been the one on the team to say, go out easy. You can always come back hard the second half. My sister is a college runner. I say the same thing to her, and tell her to hammer at the last 3K, but take out the first 2K easy. But I ran a half marathon this summer and went out too fast in the beginning, and my dad caught back up with me at like mile 8 or 9, and I said, I don't feel good. He goes, yeah, I could tell, but should have stuck with him. He knows.
So how do you go? Is it just mental, or and getting into that mentality on race day to basically run your pacing plan, or have you also found ways to work on pacing in training?
Yeah, I've been working a lot on it in training. Back when I was in college, we didn't have Garmin's. We did use a heart rate monitor. Of course, now I can't afford to get my VO2 max test or anything. So I think using a Garmin, unless you're really, doing a lot of testing with heart rate, is probably just as helpful. And the Garmin has the heart rate on it too. So, anyways, but doing a lot of pacing work in training, I think for me is key, because I know what's comfortable and what's too hard. I've run some workouts for my pacing, even though, I've been working with Stephanie Howe, and she's been telling me, you need to run this pace. I'm like, oh, I'm going to run faster. That's going to make me run faster. Well, you've been running for gosh, I don't know, how old am I? 20, 21 years. You'd think by now I would know that that's not how it works. But, sometimes I think that's the competitor in all of us, and we have to keep that competitor under control. So, I work on it a lot in training. I used to not, but this summer, starting like July, I really started to focus on that.
And is your training now primarily running, or do you put in any strength, cross training, flexibility in, or are you just focused on mostly on running workouts?
Good question. Right now, I'm getting ready for the Chicago Marathon, and kind of, I feel like some of the strength and the other stuff really should have been front loaded beforehand, before the training for the race actually started. So I don't do quite as much of that. I'm really a strong believer in listening to my body, though. So if I don't feel like running, I try to cross train instead, or take a day off. That's somewhat of a challenge for me, because sometimes I get in my head and I feel like I could take every day off in the world. So finding that balance has been huge. But up until this training for this race, I was kind of doing a little bit more tri. I did a half Ironman last summer, and so I found that was really beneficial. And if anything, that taught me that cross training is really important to work into every week's workouts.
As you're preparing for the Chicago Marathon, how can you describe how your training's been going so far?
Sure. Make a face at that, because it was, I kind of made the decision to run it a little. Well, was that Chicago? No, sorry. I ran the SelfEsteem Marathon, which is in Green Bay, in the spring, and I ran it while I was sick. Don't do that. And it was the most training I had ever put in for a marathon, and that's not saying a lot. But I had done all the long runs. I had run quite a bit. I didn't do very much speed, but I was pretty proud of myself. And so I asked a lot of people, should I still run? Should I not? And I did. That was a big mistake. I got really sick, and it cut into the first couple weeks of the marathon training. I got back on track, and then I had a neck injury this summer, and I don't know how it happened. It could have been a whole bunch of different things. I was lifting things for our business. I was windsurfing a couple days before, but the day it struck, it was like I got in a car accident. So I took some time off then, and then I really had to stand back and evaluate, like, okay, what do I want to do with this race? I just don't. I've gotten so excited about things and then not trained hard enough and let myself down that I don't want to get my expectations up too much. So we've talked about having a goal, a B goal, and a C goal, which I've never done before, which is probably why I get all worked up and don't meet my goals. So training has been going okay. It's been up and down, and I'm just hoping to PR. So we'll see.
And now, did you mention, are you working with a coach currently?
Yeah, their name is Stephanie Howe. She ran for Northern Michigan University and was a skier as well. She was an All-American runner, but at the time she was wanting to ski more, and she now says in some of her interviews that she realizes that she was a runner and she still loves skiing. But she's an ultra marathoner. She won Western States this summer, and just has a whole laundry list of some shorter ultras that she has won or placed in. And she's just, she herself has learned a lot about training and her own racing, and I feel like she can pass that on to other athletes.
How has that relationship been for you? Because you're working with a coach, which you're used to, but in a different type of setting than you were working with a coach in college.
It's a little bit different. It's different with somebody who you're friends with, and for me, it's been hard to not be embarrassed because I skipped a training day or whatever. But it's been really good, and it's not the one thing that helped me in college, which is kind of bad, is feeling like I had to meet these standards that these coaches had, and they were super serious. And it's a little more laid back than that, which I like, but at the same time, sometimes I get working. So I have a friend who is personal trainer at a gym, so if I ever need a kick in the pants, I just talk to him and he gives it to me.
what type of advice would you give to other female athletes who are maybe starting that transition from college running to to running on their own, who are either getting back into it or maybe they just graduated the last year or two and they're trying to make that transition from that college structure to what type of advice would you have for them?
It's really hard. Stay connected, and I think it's different now for people that are making that transition than when I was leaving college, because Facebook had started, but Facebook was not like Facebook is now. There were no groups, there were no messages, I don't even know. But now it seems like there's all these little communities popping up, and we can keep in contact with, we have an alumni group, we have, the Your Tribe group that I'm a part of, and there's all these different people, but just stay connected with people. Find people to run with that don't run your pace, and do it because you like it. I mean, isn't that why we're doing it anyways? Don't get caught up in all the other junk, and be patient too, because it's not like running in college. Running is not your job anymore, unless you're a professional runner, which there's like 4 people that are. So just don't treat it like your job, because you're gonna be let down.
Excellent. Now, you're running the Chicago Marathon, but you also have a project, 50 for 50. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's about and why that's important to you?
Sure. I was hoping to have my website up and running by now, but I don't, because I have life and the balance, and I'm doing it all by myself. But I do have a Facebook page, and I'll explain what it is before I tell you the address, because you'll probably forget. But I am graduating from my program in May, and I thought, let me do something big, as my gift to myself. So I decided that I was going to run an ultra marathon. I'm going to do a 50-mile race. It's in downstate Michigan. If you're not from Michigan,
There we go.
Manistee National Forest. I think it's right there. I'm not exactly 100% sure. It's called North Country Trail Run. It's a really popular race. It sold out in the week after registration opened. And I'm doing it to raise money for an organization called Concerns of Police Survivors, which provides reimbursement for counseling for children and families of people who have been killed in the line of duty. They do retreats for siblings, for family members. It's a huge support group for families of people who have lost loved ones in the line of duty. I don't think that my family would be the same without it. It's really been a huge support for my mom and her brother and sister, and her brother's wife and all this stuff. So I'm doing it to raise money. It's called 50/50 Running for Cops, because the organization is called Cops, and I feel the name is kind of a play on words, because my uncle's badge number was 450, and I wanted to work that in somewhere. So training 50 weeks for 50 miles. Started a couple weeks ago training. I'm still working towards Chicago though, and then I'll really start to build a base after that. So the Facebook page name is, I think it's 50/50 Running for Cops. Yeah, and I can maybe have Jackie post it on the Your Sportswear Facebook page, but 50/50 Running for Cops, you can kind of follow my journeys, who I'm running in memory of, and any other updates that I have as far as that. I have a website too that's not up and running yet, but it's Running for Cops, and I'm in the process of trying to decide where I want to house my blog for the time being. I really just want to keep cops related stuff on this place, or on this new website, but we'll see.
Well, that sounds very, very exciting. And we have a few questions that have come in, so I'm going to switch to asking some of these questions that have come in. And so first question is, when you went from college running to regular life running, shall we say, did you feel your self-esteem was challenged at all? And if it was, how, and how did you deal with that?
Oh my goodness. That's a loaded question. Yes. I think that a lot of it, for me, again, everybody's so different. When I think of people who ran in college and are running post-college, they're all like super fast and super fit. And unfortunately, that's not all of us. And for me, part of it was like my body changed because I wasn't running as much. And that kind of snowballed, has a snowball effect. And in fact, I'm seeing now that, like, unfortunately, I'm getting fitter and I'm feeling better, and it's snowballing the opposite direction. Again, that's not super important, but for me at the time it was, because you're so used to being like running around in your spandex. And so for a while I really struggled with it, and then I was like, wait, I can still run around in spandex. And I do, and I don't care. And it's just like, it's, you're not as vain. I hate to say it. I don't mean that all college runners are vain, but you really look at yourself in a different light. I've really learned to respect myself a lot more, actually after college running than I did before college running, and just be kind to yourself. I mean, I felt like as athletes sometimes we beat ourselves up too much, and especially as a college athlete. So it was a lot of like learning respect for yourself.
So that kind of rolls into another question here that says, do you consider yourself any less of an athlete after college? And it sounds like from some of the things that you've been saying is that you redefined what athlete meant for you throughout your post-college days.
Exactly. Yeah, no, at first I did, especially since I still had some friends that were, um, either going on post-college or still in college, or, doing some crazy things. And but then I also saw friends who weren't athletes in college who now are like amazing athletes. I've been in Leadville, and um, other people that are just out having fun. As an aside, my husband and I time running races and bike races and stuff, and we see that the mountain bike racing scene has really changed, and the numbers are really down, which is crazy because in our area mountain biking is exploding, and it's really about doing it because you love it and not because you're signing for a race. And we're seeing a lot of that right now.
That's, and have you, when you're at races, whether you're competing or whether you're there, do you gain some inspiration from those women? And you mentioned like women who weren't athletes in college and who are, running now. How does that maybe help shift your perspective for yourself and your own goals?
Sure, definitely. Actually, I didn't really bring this up, but we we own this company, so I don't get to race a lot. Actually, if you go back a couple of years ago, in my blog, I wrote why I don't race. But seeing that has really helped me because there's all different kinds of people, and like you said, just seeing people who weren't athletes who are athletes now, and a lot of it comes down to talking to the athletes after the race and just hearing about like their story, why they're doing it, just the fun that they had when they're racing. I love hearing race stories, even though, some random stranger is coming up to me and like, did I write on my forehead that I want to hear your race story? But they all tell it, and it's like, oh, that's why I do it, because it's exciting. And even though I'm not at the front of the pack usually, um, something crazy happens at the middle of the pack, or I get stuck behind somebody and it's trying to get around them, or maybe somebody's right on my tail the whole time. And so I really I've learned to enjoy being a spectator as well, and that keeps me going. So when I'm up at 4 in the morning to time a race, and then I still have some motivation to go do my own run afterwards.
And you had talked about that. One of your pieces of advice was to stay connected, and it's a different kind of way for you. But it also seems that being that spectator or that part of the support crew at a race is another way for you to stay connected to that community.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I really have enjoyed it. I really struggled, especially when we first started our business, not being able to race. But again, that's another thing we found a little bit of balance, and I don't have to go every weekend. Or, if I go, if I decide I'm going to do a big event, then we try to keep ourselves open for that particular weekend.
Now, as you're doing your marathons and you're training for the ultra event, how have you found or had to work or change your nutrition plan, and how has that been for you? I know if you've done a half Ironman, you understand the inexact science of the nutrition aspect.
I'm still working on that actually. That has, like I said, after college, I really loved food. I loved food and alcohol and all those things that aren't good for you. And it's funny because in college, I was very strict about what I ate. I ate a lot, but I ate really, really healthy. And then I think I let myself go the other way a little bit. So I'm working on that, figuring out what I need, what I don't need. And so it's been hard because sometimes I think you think you're running more so then you can eat more, but um, what is it that you're eating, and taking a look at that. Um, as far as during the event, actually, I'm learning a little bit more about that and that I need to be taking in more calories while I'm running. I always thought that I would just follow the package instructions and say, oh, it says one every 45 minutes or one every hour, but um, I actually have learned that it's more than that, and it's been hard finding out what works and what doesn't work and kind of training your body to be able to tolerate some of it. But now that I've been doing that, I feel much better. So.
That's great. Now, if we're running as we start to wrap up here, wondered if, as you talk about Chicago, you don't have to tell us all of your goals, but what's your mindset going in? I know that's coming up real soon. So what's your mindset and how are you preparing yourself mentally for that race?
I'm not. I'm freaking out. No, I'm just starting to get into the mindset. So I started with a little freak out, and I'm kind of coming down from that. And initially, when I signed up for the race, I said I'm going to Boston qualify. Well, um, that's my A goal. But I think, like I said before, I just want a PR, and I think, in talking about pace and seeing how I race this summer, I really need to keep it under control and not think about the A goal and really just think about the PR, and maybe even just hit up a pace group for the first couple miles, just keep myself in check. I know the pace. I mean, not only do I know the pace, I have a watch, but having somebody there to hold me in would probably be helpful. I was going to run with my cousin, but she's a corral ahead of me because she has a faster marathon time. I was able to bump up using my half time, but my marathon time isn't very fast. So, I'm just gonna stay calm, have fun, don't go out too fast, and try to feel good for the first 17 miles. Because usually, if I start to feel bad before then I know it's all over then.
And I lied. I have one more question for you because you had mentioned the freak out. So how do you go about dealing with your freak out, and maybe do you allow yourself to have that freak out moment and then talk yourself down from that?
Oh.
Because we all have them, right? We all
know.
Where we freak out.
Well, I think that's what this whole conversation about is, like, the freak out after college and the race freak out. And I have signed up for so many races that I didn't do. That was a big thing. In fact, it's like a family joke. Like, I would sign up for marathons and not do them. I would have this big training plan in mind. I was going to follow this training plan, and I would automatically, when things didn't go right, in my head, not consciously, but subconsciously, I'd be like, it's over and I don't feel like running and I'm not going to run. So for me, that's been a huge battle. Just to put a little plug in for Rob Carr's video that came out today. You can find it on irunfar.com's Facebook page. I know has it on their website, but it's about running and depression. And I think, anybody that suffers from any sort of debilitating mental illness or mental problems can relate. But for me, I get that freak out and I just stop, and it's over. I don't know if you call it anxiety or what, but so for me, it's been like having that freak out and saying, okay, you're gonna run in a week, so why don't you just run today? You will survive. And so that's been huge, as like just running through it, I guess, and letting it happen. But then, for me, I'm still finding that balance between listening to my body and listening to my head, and which one I gotta listen to, or which one's talking. So, no, I'm not crazy. I don't have lots of voices. But, is that my body talking or is that my head talking? And really, it comes down to assume it's your head. Like yesterday, I thought it was my head, so I was like, well, just go out and do your run anyways. But I felt like crap. So today I didn't want to run. I still have time. I might, I might not. But it's just so close that I'm like, it's 2 weeks away. It's not going to make a difference at this point.
Again, one of the themes, right, is all about that balance, the balance between what your head is saying and what your body is saying and what your heart is saying sometimes too. So
exactly.
Well, Kara, thank you so much for your time and your generosity with your story and some great points and some great tips that you made about making that transition from college life, college running into civilian running, and things that whether you were a college athlete or not, I think we can all take some information from and help us in our goals to live an active, healthy lifestyle. I just want to remind everybody to follow on Twitter, You Are Sportswear, and we'll have there'll be an update on our next month's chat about running and women being active and being able to share our stories and sort of gain inspiration and, again, share our stories so that we know that we're all not alone in this process and have that connection. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, I just wanted to add, too,
yes.
that if you want to ask us any other questions, you can still use that hashtag. And
yes, the hashtag.
We'll follow up on that.
Hashtag strongwomen, and we will follow up with any more questions.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to hear from you on Twitter, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.